2020. It's 7:09 p.m. City of Somerton Regular Council Meeting. Mr. Lozano, can you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we go to roll call, we'd just like to tell the public that due to the recent surge in numbers here in our city of Somerton, we have decided to have this meeting virtually in order to prevent for social distancing, and just reminding everybody to be careful. We only have one supermarket, one post office. That's where we all congregate, and we gotta take care of each other. Wear your mask when you are out in public, and let's protect each other. Roll call.
Mayor Gerardo Anaya.
Present.
Vice Mayor Martha Garcia.
Present.
Councilmember Carlos Gonzalez.
Present.
Councilmember Miguel Villalpando.
I'm on the phone.
Councilmember Luis Galindo has asked to be excused. Councilmember Jesus Roldan.
Present.
Councilmember Juan Castillo.
Present.
Mayor, you have a quorum.
Call to the public. Anybody from the public wishing to address council?
Let me unmute the public.
Anybody from the public? There is no one. So there's no items in consent agenda. We're gonna go to a public hearing. Is there a motion to open public hearing relating to the approval of Somerton 2020 general plan to be submitted to the voters at the next general election to be held November 3rd, 2020 for ratification? Is there a motion?
So moved.
A motion by Councilman Garcia, second by Councilman Castillo. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I think everybody said aye, but they were muted. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes. Right.
C. Ms. Juarez.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council. Tonight we have the final public hearing for the 2020 Somerton General Plan. And I would like to introduce Matthew Kleisico from Michael Baker International. Matthew will lead us to the final presentation, and we'll be here to answer any questions that may arise. Thank you.
Welcome back, sir.
Great to be here. Well, thank you, Mayor and Council, for the opportunity to speak to you this evening. It is really great to be here before you for this milestone presentation on the 2020 General Plan update for the City of Somerton. If you may recall, I was last before the Council back in February for a Council work session to go over the General Plan, or the draft general plan at that time, in great detail. So I'm going to try and keep my comments fairly succinct this evening because there hasn't been significant modifications to the plan since that work session. So I think a lot of this content might look familiar to you, and I recognize you have some other council agenda items for this evening. But certainly when I conclude my comments, if there's anything that any council member would like to discuss in more detail, I'm happy to revisit that. As a reminder, why are we updating the general plan in the first place? Well, state statute requires that every community must update their general plan every 10 years. So the last plan was prepared in 2010, so here we are in 2020 looking to update the plan. In addition to that, state statute requires that general plans address specific elements or topics based on the size of the community. So given Somerton's population, the state requires that this general plan must address 7 specific elements, which are highlighted on the slide there with an asterisk next to them. But in addition to those 7, the last 2010 or the existing general plan added 2 elective elements, the neighborhoods element as well as the public facilities and services element. New to this 2020 general plan is an economic development element. So through the process, it was recognized that that would be a key topic to include within the general plan. And I think you'll see through the preceding slides that the rationale behind that. So the general plan process started back in September of 2019. As far as general plans go, that's actually a pretty rapid drafting process for arriving at this evening's meeting. The process overall was really predicated on 4 distinct phases. We begin with recognizing where Somerton has been, where we are today, and where we're projected to be in the future. With that information, we then engage the public to understand what are their priorities and their aspirations for the future of Somerton. Benefited with that information, we then enrich the general plan by drafting and updating the current plan with the information that we have learned. From there, we are able to move into our achieve phase, where we go through different processes to review the plan and update it, which allows us to arrive at our meeting this evening, where we're requesting council formally adopt the general plan so that we can ultimately place the plan on the November 3rd ballot for voter ratification. State statute requires that every 10-year update is ultimately ratified by the voters. So naturally, in order to inform the process of updating the general plan, we have to recognize what are we planning for. So we do that and we get a better understanding of what are those impacts that we need to address in the general plan update through 2 avenues. One, we do a technical analysis, and then the second is we, as I mentioned before, engage with the public. The slide that you see on the screen currently has some of those key outcomes of our technical analysis. So we look at a lot of different data sets when we go through our analysis, and you can see on the left-hand side of the slide, one of those is naturally looking at census information. So the census estimated in 2018 that Somerton's population was about 16,500 people. When we refer to the Arizona Office of Economic Opportunity, their projected population figures for Somerton in the year 2040 is over 26,000 people. So there's clearly growth that's going to be occurring in Somerton. That's a positive aspect. But naturally, with that growth, we understand that there's going to be a level of improvements that are either going to have to be made to trigger that growth or to support that growth as it happens. So whether that be water or wastewater infrastructure or park and recreation expansions, those are things that we have to acknowledge within the general plan to prepare for the growth that is being projected. Some of the other key elements that I wanted to pause on is one is that first notion of, in the current 2010 general plan, the notion of making Somerton the best little community in Yuma County was introduced. And since that time, Somerton has really embraced that notion and even expanded on it to be that moniker of the best little city in Arizona. So that notion is still held within the general plan draft that's before you this evening. The other notions that I'd pinpoint is the strong support for the continued strong support for the Somerton High School facility, as well as downtown development. And you'll kind of see a consistency relative to those aspects as I move through the slides here. So in addition to our technical analysis, we went out to the public. We used a lot of different tools to gain feedback from the community. That included one-on-one stakeholder interviews. Many of you on the council we were able to sit down with and have a dialogue with. We had a detailed conversation with our General Plan Advisory Committee, which was comprised of key business owners and agency representatives and members of the community. We held community workshops, whether they were here in the council chambers as well as mobile workshops at some of the town events that are so popular. Rather than just looking for residents to come to us, we also went to them via online survey and mapping tools. And then we also supported that effort with some of our technical aspects that I mentioned in our process, whether it be council work sessions or the state mandated 60-day review process where we send out the plan to adjacent agencies for their input, as well as coordinating with the Planning and Zoning Commission. So through all of those conditions, we gained a lot of beneficial feedback. And one of the key things we learned is that the vision that was established in the 2010 general plan has serviced the community well and is still valued and relative to today. So when we asked residents to actually rank some of the values that exist within that vision statement, you can see on the slide on the left how the community prioritized some of those values. And that prioritization starts to help us understand what is the foundational elements that we must maintain in the general plan. So while we often think about the general plan as something that we're trying to enact change, there's also certain things within a community that we naturally want to maintain. So some of those are the notion of safe community, that social cohesion, or, a community is really about a collection of people, and it was recognized that the people within Somerton is what makes it such a wonderful community. Economic development and job growth, strong education, and maintaining that cultural diversity and agricultural heritage are some of those key things that the residents indicated through our outreach that they want to maintain. But when we tweak that question and ask the public, what would you like to see improved in Somerton? So start asking them to look at the future. We see some overlap amongst some of the things that they want to maintain. So you can see from the pie chart on the left that residents, 12% of the respondents felt like safety of our community is still something we can build on. While it's something we want to maintain, we want to grow it. As well as employment opportunities in the community. But we also see some things that bubble up new in terms of comparing what we want to maintain to what we want to grow. And that is the overall dining, shopping, and entertainment options, as well as just improving the downtown and support for improvements to the city infrastructure, whether that be roads, water, or sewer. So between that maintaining and improvement, we start to get a better sense of where there's support within the public in terms of where Somerton is today and in the future. From that and all of the feedback that we've collected, we're able to get into the draft of the plan that's before you this evening. So what you see on the slide here is a snapshot of what that vision of Somerton is for the future and the principles that make up that vision. So for the sake of time, I'm not going to read each specific principle, but I'll bring your attention to the underlying portions of each principle. And you can hopefully start to see the connectivity between those pieces and the feedback that we were hearing through our technical and public technical analysis and public feedback. So we want to make sure that there's that continuation of connectivity between what it is that we're learning and hearing about Somerton, and then what is expressed within the general plan. So then the graphic on the right of this particular slide shows a very generic way of the organization of the document. So we have our vision statement that is the overarching future state that the town wishes to be. And then we have those 10 identified elements that are the individual chapters of the plan. And within each of those chapters or elements, we have a series of goals, which are the forward-thinking notions that we want to achieve in order to drive each of those specific elements. And then we have a series of policies that decision makers, whether it be staff, the council, or appointed officials, can use in order to inform their decisions that are in line with those goals. And then finally we have actions, and those actions are specific efforts that can be done by the community that will promote the goals, and then ultimately that all rolls up to achieving the vision for Somerton. So on these next few slides, I wanted to share all of the individual goals that are included within each element. Again, I won't read each goal, but I wanted to put them all on a slide so that council has the benefit of understanding how robust this plan is, and that within any given element there are a series of goals which help drive that particular element. But I'd also bring your attention to the kind of parentheses at the end of each goal that highlights the individual policies that go along with those goals. So it's not just these goals that are helping to guide Somerton into the future.